I used to own a chipped PS1 as a kid, which, for those who don't know, meant that it was modded to play ROMs burnt to discs and bypass region locking, thus effectively giving me the master key to its entire library. Every month or so, my dad would burn a small stack of about 5 or so games, with 1 or 2 being requests and the rest just being whatever, and as a result, I played a shit ton of weird fucking shit. Anything from the janky Bastard Child sequel to Lego Island, this funky little space shooter where you could hang around at base, or a Muppet Show kart racer, dear God why, to this crazy Japanese Dragon Ball Z game, Street Fighter EX2, and whatever the fuck Guardians Crusade was trying to be. Now, besides this being a big reason as to why I like digging into the obscure, especially on PS1, I also bring this up due to the following game exemplifying exactly what my experiences jumping into the PS1 deep end were like. I mean, when you start, you see pre-renders and big dialogues, thinking, okay, this is either a JRPG or a survival horror game. But then it hit you with the point and click, and it's like, oh. Okay. So, you explore the area, enjoying the nostalgic backgrounds and the music, when suddenly, BANG! Water, full 3D, and fucking dolphins, boy! It's like uncovering some unholy cocktail of genres, scraping the dust off, chipping away at the faded paint, only to find layer after layer of surprisingly cool and interesting stuff. In either case, Blue, Legend of the Water, is an underwater exploration adventure game. You swim around the deep blue sea, do some puzzles, and tell your dolphin buddy to do stuff. Think of Haunting Ground or Rule of Rose only as underwater Tomb Raider sections, and you'll get a rough picture of what type of game this be. Oh, and the story, as the awkwardly translated back-of-the-box blurb tells me, is as follows. The main character, Mia, was helicoptered to the Oceanographic Research Base, Northern Cross, where her father, Halbert, was working. At that base, she was excavating the ruins of the Mu continent, and she was heading to visit the site. She had always had a mysterious dream of a voice that continues to call herself, which had become stronger since the ruins were discovered. After arriving at Northern Cross, after a brief greeting with Halbert, she immediately headed to the diving deck. It is because she is waiting for her irreplaceable partner, Luca. Maia, who swims with Luca after long time. At this time, she still had no idea that her own secrets would be revealed in this expedition. Well, goddamn. What I get from the actual game itself, though, is that these secrets revolve around ancient sunken temples which you uncover using Dolph. Thing is that at any point when underwater, you can open menu and select one of 4 AI modes. Meaning that when, say, your man's over here gets stuck on the rock, you can pick the one with the holy hand indicating teamwork and simply swim into it to have your buddy push it with you. Or you can use the "Go, you fool" option to have him take off and distract the big fish, or use the "Hold up" option to have him stay put and hold down a slap to keep the door ajar. Like I said, Haunting Ground without monsters by way of Tomb Raider if it was all water levels, and also if those water levels were Zelda dungeons. With the split paths leading to puzzles that trigger sequences in the big main hall that will then lead to progress or item for more puzzle. Not gonna front, this game is fucking weird, though in a good way. As it's unconventional, so to say. Like, even the point-and-click segments is really strange and interesting, seeing as you don't cursor freely, but instead browse between a few preset selectables and maneuver between screen using wireframe map that handles in a similar way. Honestly, aside from the very typical happy-go-lucky 90s Japanese adventure game look and sound, there's nothing conventional about it. It is in its own lane. The Dolphin Lane. Where the swimming handles well, given that the water gives a lot of realistic resistance, but not in an annoying manner. You can strafe, go up or down, with up or down, or even inverted if you wish, which is neat. See clearly because of the low poly, and tap button to go faster.
Of course, doing the latter will see your oxygen bar run out quicker, but that's nothing a quick drift along the surface won't fix. Overall, the game avoids a lot of the more annoying, fiddly, clunky elements of most other early 3D swimming efforts by 1. Not requiring much precision, and 2. just being a very mellow, slow exploratory game, thus not having that stark contrast of suddenly having your movement gimped. Doesn't mean that it isn't still a bit finicky in regards to aligning yourself properly for optimal examination, or that the camera isn't shoved up your ass the moment things get even a little tight, but the hitboxes for contextuals are quite generous, and there's rarely anything that requires quick reaction time during what I played, so I can't say that it ever became an issue. I very strongly fuck with this game. It's just so odd. The gameplay, the tone, and OST being very reminiscent of those comfy, cozy DS adventure games a la Trace Dusk, Lost in Blue, Time Hollow, or Flower, Sun and Rain, and just the entire concept behind it are super unique. I'd love to see this translated one day, though even then the menus, puzzle elements, and hints are all in English, so it's not like you can't play it at all if you can't read hieroglyphs. I mean, figuring out most of the puzzles and other anti-roadblock requirements can be a bit rough, being that there's loads of talkie triggers, but I made it in a fair few hours no problem, and even the story is quite decently comprehensible, given that the plot is, as I said it was just a few minutes ago, and is also quite expressively animated, making the general gist of things perfectly perceivable. Either way, shit's very comfy, whether if it's exploring the base and admiring the effort that was put into these pre-renders, or exploring an underwater Egyptian-style dungeon in which you click big buttons with crunchy sandy sound effects and find all manner of mysterious religious relics. After getting lost in the great deep blue sea of well-hidden linearity, you'll be sure to have a chill old time. What's also mysterious about this game, by the way, is that I couldn't find any available ROMs. It's on PSN, luckily, but shit's still pretty worrying considering that this game isn't exactly unknown in Japan. It should have a ROM or two out there, but when Nintendo took down Emu Paradise, a lot of smaller sites also closed up shop out of fear from the big bad bully. And the site where I got King of Crusher from, and would have found this as well, got caught in the cross pubes, so yeah. Regardless, though, this is still one hell of a start to our deep dive into the PS1's deep end. Man, sometimes all it takes to get intrigued in a game is but a single screenshot. And I mean, just fucking look at it, like god damn, this game is a fucking vision. A cyberpunky, point-and-clicky JRPG-y 90s anime girl squat fighty vision with very many dialogue and voice act. Which immediately makes it apparent why this never got localized. I mean, sure, Konami or Square might have the money to bring over huge story-heavy games, but whoever all of these names are sure don't. Shit's sad, as now it's quite hard to get into for those struggling with the language barrier, given that it ain't exactly your traditional JRPG. From what I could glean, it's half menu-driven, half real-time, somewhat similar to Xenosaga or Final Fantasy XII in a sense. There's a menu from which one can pick various attacks, defensive options, or suppressing fire ? By either interjecting while shit go, or by pausing. Some buttons do trigger live attacks, like how X summons a big AoE, and at times it certainly felt like I actually needed to attack manually Kingdom Hearts style, but then most of the times the girls also just go off on their own. Quite frankly, I have no clue what was going on. I mean, there's all of this shit selectable from the start menu. It could be stat boosts, tactics for your teammates, or something else entirely. I don't know, and there's no guides. Which kinda raises an issue with me doing videos like these, doesn't it? Like, I want to play this and tell you about it. It has this cool-ass futuristic Japanese city presented in adorable dollhouse vision. It has a neat PS1 as fuck soundtrack. It has a character called Labia Mavalik. Trust me, we fucking in there. But we're also not, as it's a very complicated, huge, story-heavy game that requires knowledge of Japanese to play. And yeah, you could say the same about Moonlight Syndrome or Racing Lagoon, but in both of them's cases, I did only spend about 2 hours playing them, and they also had a lot going on otherwise, like amazingly rendered CG art. Nor were they all that cryptic or complex from a gameplay standpoint, but Silent Mobius is, and in terms of presentation, you'll mostly be looking at gray hallways and these generic dialogue boxes, which, you know, is fine. I ain't knocking that at all, but it just doesn't give me a whole lot to work with outside of saying city pretty and
oh boy, golly gee, the combat sure seems interesting.
without ever fully knowing if it really is or not. What I do fully know, though, is that it was based off of a popular Mango series. There's a PC-98 game as well about the Titanic, 2 OVAs and even an anime, and looking into those very briefly did shine some added context onto the game, being that this character is indeed called Labia, though the Mavalik part is drawn into question. And also that it's about this cool girl police squad and environmentalism and aliens and shit, so that's neat. Also about aliens and environmentalism, by the way, is Lisa Cube, a game people really want me to cover in one of these, though similar to Mobius, it's way too talky for me to really want to dip in deeply. I did play it for a couple of hours though, and yeah, this is extremely my sort of game. It's one of them quirky JRPGs, you see, in the vein of Earthbound, Lisa, Moon, or Contact, and follows the tale of Ken, a man tasked with getting all animals onto the Ark before the planet finna get turbo-fucked by a meteor. But that isn't gonna stop us from getting into all sorts of hijinks along the way. I mean, there's a dog store, a cool, cheeky, cute anime girl, a Santa City, and Ken's also a massive dweebo who gets bossed around a bunch for maximum comedic impact. It oozes personality, basically. From the great-ass cartoony character art with the simple faces and the colored lines to the parody-esque music. And this RPG makery yet weirdly off-kilter 2D sprite-based visual style. Gameplay-wise, however, it seems kinda standard issue, but for now that's a good thing, as I'll at least be able to know what the fuck I'm doing. In either case, I think it says a lot that I can still vibe with its vibes so heavily through what little Japanese I can hear with my ears but not read with my eyes. You know, the acting's good and very over-the-top sounding, which helps, but even just the small touches like all of the sinks being rusty, gross, and dried up, or that many of the towns look more like slums than anything, or this H.R. Geiger looking ass shit, all give the idea that this happy-go-lucky music hides a much darker underbelly. An underbelly that's a bit obscured by all of this still, but luckily there is an actual fan translation underway, so I'll definitely give it a proper whirl once it's finished. Though, given Ken's outfit, the journey, and the themes of decay, I can only assume that this is literally just Death Stranding, you guys. Another text-heavy, just about the story type of game I've gotten a lot of requests for is Kowloon's Gate. A game about the dingiest, Chinesiest city. Like here I was thinking that RE6 got wild and wicked with its dinge, embodying the fire hazard and SARS outbreak ethos of Chinese apartment buildings, but this game straight up has a man constrained by rampant electrical wires, so I think it wins. There's also Trapped in Box Headman, this fucking guy, and the steampunk mobile driving dude. The game's just very weird, oppressive, and cryptic. Everything about it looks fucked, from the creepy people sitting on boxes in dead-end alleyways looking all disheveled, to the fact that most buildings are sealed off by rusty iron roller shutters, the neon signs have fallen on ground, and the steam pipes, wiring, and asphalt are properly busted. It almost feels as if you're underground, watched, going places you shouldn't be, All the while, the camera drunkenly swerves with every step like you ain't even an actual person walking through it, but instead as if one's unwillingly being dragged through this hellhole, eyes kept open, a Clockwork Orange style being shown fucked up sight after fucked up sight as you squeeze through the tightest, most unnaturalist hallways at speeds way too fast for comfort. And whenever you do take control normally, it'll be in these dumpy 3D first-person low-render distance maze areas that very much feel like your average Steam horror game in which literally anything could jump out at you at any time. You know, much like this.
Oh my god.
Though at the same time, it is still just a regular town, with shops, neon signs, and billboards, and more regular looking people just minding their own business. It is this contrast of feeling like you've stepped into some Rat King ass sewer realm connected only by alleyways, crawl spaces, and stairwells, and the mostly normal looking Chinese market squares where there's just these two dudes chilling at the end of an alley, only for them to give way to a buddy boy over here that makes things feel fucked. I just never really knew what to think, let alone what to expect. And in that, I guess the language barrier also added to it in a sense, being that I was very much fucking lost in all the right ways. Trapped, if you will, in this unwelcoming dark shithole with no sense of comfort to grab onto. Hell, even the music is just sounds. There's no clear motifs, just these distant clunks, clanks, and monks. Honestly, the only real slight that I could weigh against it is its compression. Sure, the game's already on 4 discs, but that clearly wasn't enough, as the mush what they had to taint these graphics with to fit shit on there is just a bit too much.
So, let's port it to PSVR!
Yeah, that's right. In the year of our Lord Fucko 2018, they dropped this motherfucker onto the Hong Kong PlayStation Store, and because Hong Kong has many English-speaking residences, it was actually translated. Don't have a PSVR though, but in the other year of our Lord 2019, they released a patch letting you play it regular. Also, they turned it into an amusement park at one point. Also, this place is real! Kowloon Walled City is an actual location that you can actually visit, and it is the densest motherfucker of an apartment complex in existence. Because it was so huddled together, there are also legitimately places where the sky is nigh on invisible. Shit's fucking insane, man, and I want to go there. But yeah, the remake. It's the same locales, just slightly less obtuse and way prettier. The lighting's great, the moisty sheen on the tiles is great, the steamy pipes is great, the storefronts is great, and overall it just looks great. On a surface level, I'd say that the spooky atmosphere has definitely increased and that it's also less tedious to navigate due to the freedom of movement. But on a deeper, more intimate level, I'd say that it's also far less unfriendly and abstract. Thing is that you are just a person walking now. All of the townsfolk and weird-ass sites are readily approachable and not kept at an eerie distance, thus making you feel less like this scoffed-upon intruder in Creepoville and more like you've just walked into a strange but not all that scary neighborhood. That isn't to say that the game is any less cryptic or weird or distant per se. The music is still the same, the visuals convey similar vibes, and the fact that you can't actually talk to anyone at all this time around also puts you in quite the weird, awkward place. Like I said, the levels are the same, but the base gameplay isn't. As unlike the OG, where shit was solely focused on getting an item to use it elsewhere to get another item to use elsewhere, it's like a fucking photography game now. A mission-based one at that. You'll pretty much get teleported to a random place in town with an instruction of where to photo, and so you go there and photo and get a new instruction. Weirdly enough, you also need shrimp to be able to take photo in the first place, so you'll constantly be picking them up with all the goofy-ass gamey sound effects that come with it. And outside of that, you don't interact with anything. You only photo. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really fuck with it. I mean, while it does, again, create a distance between you and this world, which is what made the original feel so alien and spooky, it's not a threatening distance, I guess. Everything's tangible, you can get up close, and because it is solely a photography game, you know nothing can hurt you or spook you. Add to that the fact that the missions reuse the same locales way too often, essentially artificially forcing more backtrack, and you end up with a game that overall is just kinda dull. Empty, even, and not in a good way. Also, this ain't even a PS1 game, so why are we even still here? My journey into the deep must continue in any case. Many an interesting looking fish swam past me, yet none I could understand. In my search to find one that I could, I was soon led to one very logical conclusion. If you're anything like me, then you probably have some pretty fond memories of dicking around during summer. Spring vacay gives a kid a lot of free time, of course, and the chill breezy vibes of the season overall certainly added to the sense that your child ass could get up to anything. Mainly playing loads of video games. Whether if it was outside on a bench using DS or Advance, or near the cool flow of a fan on console, I'd always have some fittingly smooth games to play. JRPGs primarily have become tainted with the stank of summer for me. I mean, where else would I find the time in between all of the homework that I wasn't doing and all of the school that I was skipping? Like goddamn bro, shit was busy. Though, I suppose that the genre also does vibe with the season aesthetically pretty fucking well. Fucking Digimon World and its entirely cicada-driven audioscape, or Final Fantasy X and its tropical, beachy, colorful as fuck setting, and of course Persona 4 with its quiet Japanese town life. Man, that Japanese town life. Like, wouldn't it be great if someone was to make a whole game specifically about it? Like a Japanese town / summer vacay simulator? Yeah, that would be perfect. And I mean, it's not like developer Millennium Kitchen totally made one and kept them to themselves. No sir, that would suck. Boku no Natsuyami is exactly as I described it to be. Being a game about being a young child during summer vacation in a small Japanese town, getting up to all manner of hijinks, like jumping on the bed, longingly staring out the window, catching bugs, going fishing, making friends with the local hoodlums who live under the bridge, break stuff, break more stuff, and of course, wrestle some bugs. It's a very chill game where you just kinda do whatever as time ticks away on the daily. There are some puzzle-like elements, but they're puzzles in the same way that any obstacle to a kid is a puzzle. Think of things like, oh no, however will I get past these scary bees? Or, now that they're all in the living room, I can steal the honey. But you aren't really pressured to do any of those things. You can fill in your day exactly as how you wish. Spend it all on the fucking swing, why don't you? Anyway, you'd think the daily routines of doing nothing and exploring would get boring, or at least a smidge repetitive, but much like child life IRL, every day is a new adventure. Something or other will happen, and new locales or enemies tend to unlock gradually as well. For instance, you don't have the tools to take care of the bees on day 1, but one day someone might just leave out a pole with which one can whack. Also, you tend to learn or acquire these new things at the end of a day, thus always making it pretty exciting to start the next. Besides, the mundanity sets the bar pretty fucking low as well. The most exciting thing initially is walking up the spooky bake stairs and excitedly hopping across rocks. Small touches like these do say a lot about who you are and what the fuck you fucking finna do today, but when something truly bizarre does eventually happen, it'll hit home pretty hard. It's like Animal Crossing, but with actual story progression, or Harvest Moon without the busy work, or Tulip Sans Do You Want to Kill Myself, or Shenmue Beyond the Need for Smokes. It's a pretty great balance. Also, fuck it. I love this Persona 1-ass music, but y'all need to appreciate this game's excellent aesthetic a bit more. I mean, just fucking look at this shit. Talk about knowing your limitations, like goddamn. And sure, it's a late PS1 game and those always tend to fare a bit better than the earlier ones, but typically in a way that'll still show the many downsides of the system. But Boku don't strive for realism. It strives for your favorite slice-of-life anime. The backgrounds are all in 90s anime water paint, and the use of CG is minimal and shaded in a way where it doesn't stick out at all. The models are also very cartoony and simple, with minimal polys, plain textures with primary colors, and huge expressive line faces. The few animated background elements, like these curtains, don't stand out either because of the anime frame rate vibes, and it's all topped off with cleverly distant camera framing that not only makes shit feel proper breezy, but also hides the compressed dumpiness you'd otherwise see. Not to mention things like these bugs, the windy ribbons on bridges, or the 2 whole frames of animation that the water gets blend in very well as a result of the framing too. The game is a stunning work of art. The people at Millennium Kitchen must have had a raw dedication to capture the Japanese countryside summer from the eyes of a child as creatively and accurately as possible. And as dumb as it might sound, I'm honestly honored to be able to walk around in it. Also, by the way, they made an entire series of these. One on the PS2, which my boy Miles, aka Hikiko, aka Phil Hatley, aka Young Seahorse, did an excellent video on. There's another on the PSP, and even one on the PS3, none of which made it overseas. However, there was another. Could it be that this one did get localized? Could it be super obscure because it was a download-only 3DS title? Could it be the subject of my next video? Well, I mean, yeah, you dumbass.